Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Homestead. It is an exciting day in February for me because we're building our seed starting shelves. I have all these parts right here that I've brought in from the shed. I brought them in a while ago so they could get warm because it is minus 27 degrees Celsius right now. And all that metal out in the shed was very cold. Didn't want to be working with it inside. If you watched my seed starting setup video that I put out last year, back in January of 2025, a lot of this will look familiar because it's the same seed starting setup that I use every year. But I wanted to walk you through how I'm setting it up this year, what I am changing, and what I'm keeping the same. I'll let you know up front, I am not changing much. I'm gardening in the suburbs in Canada, zone 6A. The information that I share here is relevant to probably zones 4 through 6 because I used to be a zone 5, and then with warming temperatures, we are now bumped up to a 6A. So I have experience in colder climates as well. And a lot of what I talk about here is relevant to those shorter to intermediate season length growers. And it's also relevant to people who are in urban or suburban spaces, not filling entire agricultural fields with crops and filling entire greenhouses with seedlings. We're a little smaller scale here, but still more than just a single grow light operation. So we're in my living room and I clear everything out of this corner when it's time to set up the grow shelves. This is my second year having it in the main living space. I used to have to set up in the basement, but now the kids really have taken over the basement and it's just not as enjoyable a space for me to go and hang out and look after my seeds. And I love having them here in the living room because my desk is behind you right now. And so when I'm at my computer and I have work meetings, then my little seedlings are behind me and I like to show them off, really, honestly. So this unit is a little bit clunky to put together and it's way easier with 2 people, but I am alone today, so it is what it is. And you may be wondering right off the bat why it's like wire mesh here. That's because of the cats. You do not need something like this for your seed starting setup if you have no cats or well-behaved cats, but I really do need it because the cats would just eat all my seedlings and dig up all the dirt. I'm actually going to need a mallet also. Oh, there's a cat toy attached to this. That's fun. Ow. Last year I did this on hyperlapse and that was a good thing because I did a lot of swearing throughout the whole setup. I don't know if I'm going to hyperlapse this or not. I might treat you to a little bit of colorful language. Please don't fall over on me. I lost one of the rubber feet off of this thing, so I'm using the coaster trick. I think I need another coaster. Or I'll fold this in half. So far it's going a lot better than this time last year. It's going together a lot smoother. To be honest, this is only my second year setting this up. Kim did it before that because I guess, our son was still a little baby and so I was taking care of him and couldn't do this kind of thing. That's my excuse anyway. With this setup, I have to remember where I put my shelves every year before I put the rest of the braces on. And I think we marked yeah, so one of them does go here and then one of them goes here. I like to leave a lot of space on the bottom shelf because that's where I will move tall plants once my pepper plants are 12 inches tall in late April. And my ginger, when it shoots up really tall, and my loofahs, I put them on the bottom shelf. So I like to keep it probably 24 inches because you have to account for the grow lights in that space as well. So it's probably only like a maximum of 20 inches of growing space. And I also want a shelf that remains fairly low or fairly short, because when you're first getting your seeds to germinate, you want the grow light really, really close to them. When they're just starting that growth, they're going to want to reach towards the light, and the closer you have that light, the less leggy your seedlings are going to be. They're going to stay stockier, shorter, which means they'll have a tougher stem and they'll just grow bushier instead of straight up tall, which is what you want a couple months down the road. You don't want all of your seedlings to be 12 inches tall and not fit in your house anymore, because where I live, our last frost date is not until the middle of May. May 10th, I think, is the estimated last frost date. So I don't want these shelves to be completely overcrowded. Usually I can't avoid it completely, but there are some decisions I can make along the way that help keep these shelves in a reasonable state of growth and not just a massive jungle. So my one top shelf is gonna go here. I have it marked. Whoops. Other side. And then another shelf. Am I sure I put it here? I guess. Another one goes there. Trap myself in here. Okay. Let's just talk for a minute about the height that I choose to use for my grow shelves. If you lived in a climate where, say, you're starting seeds in January, like we do here, some of our earliest, but you can then start planting out in early March. So we're talking, I don't know, is that zone 7, probably 7 or 8? You can get away with much shorter shelves because your plants aren't growing for as long indoors. So in that case where you would have a really long growing season, you don't have to start your seeds earlier. You still start them around the same time, January, February, but then they can move outside earlier as young plants. Around these parts, we have cold winters that last sometimes until April. Still have snow on the ground in April. And then our first frost comes end of September or early October. So to get plants reaching full maturity and putting on an abundant harvest before the first frost comes, we do have to start a lot of things fairly early inside. So we'll start them in January, February. Things like peppers, I start in February. And then my peppers will grow to like close to their full height inside under grow lights. And then I move them outside after my expected last frost date because they like it really warm. So it's usually more like late May, mid to late May, that I'll put them outside. So when I start them in February, that's like 3.5 months that they grow inside. And I need to do that. I need to start them that early because of when I want to start harvesting things like peppers. I want to be able to start harvesting peppers in July, not the end of August. So I start them early. That just means they need more time to grow indoors, which means you need taller shelves. You need to accommodate that eventual growth. Now, as I mentioned, when you are first starting out your seedlings, you want them to be very close to that light, like even an inch or two away from the light, and then just move the light up as they start to grow. That encourages sturdy, stocky seedlings instead of long, spindly ones. And so I love having at least one of those short shelves. And I'm always really tempted to do 2 short shelves, but then I would find myself out of space because those plants would become tall enough to need their own shelf, and I would have somehow magically filled all 4 shelves that I gave myself. It's like seedling math, seed starting math. If you have the space, you will fill it. In fact, in your garden, if you don't have the space, you will still probably overfill it when you're seed starting. It's really tempting to just start everything, even though you don't have a space, and just tell yourself, I'll find a spot for it later. But I'm here today to try to help you set up a seed starting station that will not become an overgrown jungle. And we do that by having a station that is accommodating of our needs. So if you find yourself outgrowing whatever seed starting setup you have, maybe consider trading it in. Sell what you have on Marketplace or something and look for another used shelving setup. It doesn't have to cost you a lot. I love the concept of Marketplace because it's just buying and selling in your community, and often will negate the cost of getting something new because we're technically just trading it, just not with the same people. It's like trading, but also with money involved. Anyway, so on that note, let's continue building this seed sorting shelf. This is another area where I risk messing up. I have to get these shelves in here. There's an order I think I have to do this in. Uh-oh, that one popped out. For construction skills. Oh, this one's out too. My God. Okay, that's better. I really love this kind of rack for seed starting shelves because you can easily clip grow lights to things like this. Then they hang down, and if you use a chain, you can easily adjust. One more. Okay, I'm always tempted to pile stuff on top of that top shelf. I love having a top shelf, but I'm really just putting it there to hang the lights from because aesthetics do matter to me. This is my main living space, and I'm one of those people who, when there's clutter, I can't focus. I feel a little bit on edge, so I do like to keep my main living space kind of minimal. It's hard with a big giant shelving unit full of plants, but keep it a little minimal, not a bunch of junk on top of the grow shelves. And in the coming months, if you notice a bunch of stuff on top of those shelves when I'm talking to you, let me know. Tell me that I need to clean up my act because I'm leaving mess in my living space. Now we're on to lights. A story about these lights, they just came to me like magic. I didn't order them, didn't pay for them. They showed up at my door. And I think I figured out that it was just a mistaken delivery from Amazon. We didn't order them. It was a few years ago now. But like, they're exactly what I needed, which was so weird. It was so weird. And I contacted Amazon and was like, hey, this package arrived. And they just chalked it up to some like error where they were being returned by a customer, but somehow ended up with me and they didn't ask for them back. So here we go. I've got my grow lights. They aren't the greatest. I've definitely had better luck with stronger grow lights like I have in my basement right now over my early January seedlings, but they do the trick. However, last year was the first year I tried just 2 lights per shelf, and I wasn't thrilled with the speed of how things grew. So this year I'm going to do 3. I know nothing about these in terms of their wattage or whatever they are. I know they're grow lights, but I obviously didn't do research before purchasing these. So they are what they are, but they did grow plants to size last year from January until May. If you're picking grow lights and you're going to have more than just one, you're going to have a series of lights or a couple of shelves, look for ones that can connect into each other like this. You can get a string of lights going that way, because then you only need one plug into your wall and all the lights will be powered by it. Okay, now I have to go find some hooks. I am pretty much ready to put these lights up and I can't find my hooks anywhere. I just rifled through an entire bin labeled seed starting setup and I can't find them. So excuse me while I bundle up in my coat and snow pants, get back out to the shed and see if I can dig them out of there. I found it. This nondescript little paper bag called Chains and Hooks. It was pinned between seedling trays. Chains, okay. There's some hooks. I swear I'm gonna organize all this better. Hey, is this the foot? No, it's too small. I just use little S hooks, really simple, to loop into a chain link and then hook from our rack or our shelf. And because I like things as tidy as possible, I twist tie together the connector wires. This is one option for starting your own seedlings inside. This is one grow light, and I've crammed a lot of things under here, as you can see. You could get away with that if you have a small garden, maybe 1 or 2 raised beds, and you only want to start maybe, you know, 5 tomatoes and 5 peppers, do a few flowers here and there. You could totally use just any old shelf that you have available that you could clear off and then put one single grow light, and it would probably do you. If you have a bigger garden though, you're going to need something a little bit bigger. What can happen when you have a shorter growing season and you start seeds indoors is that you end up starting all of your stuff as early as you can, which I do. It makes sense if you want to get harvestable, mature plants earlier in the season. But then these plants grow inside your house for like 3 months, sometimes 4 months, and they get really overgrown and they get unruly and they take over your grow shelves. And what can happen is you end up with diseases and fungi and stuff in your plants because they're so crowded in together. You can't get airflow. It's harder to see when things need to be watered or when they're overwatered because the plants are just like piled in on top of each other. I've had this problem many years in a row. And so I always try to keep myself expanded to the grow shelf setup that absolutely meets my needs with a little bit of wiggle room. And honestly, right now, my grow shelves are barely big enough for me in my garden, but I do have this single grow light here that's an overflow, although I was considering taking this grow light and hanging it up in my living room, but we'll see. So I do have an overflow here, but yeah, if you can keep your grow shelf setup to the size that you need or tiny bit bigger, then you should be able to avoid some of that overcrowding and jungle effect by like mid-May when we can actually get our plants outside here. Now we have our shelves set up and we have the lights attached and on and they're sequenced together. I've only done the top 2 shelves right now because I don't need the bottom shelf yet. I probably won't put any plants on there until mid-March at this rate. Now the last thing that I need to add to this shelf is a heat mat. This is an optional part of seed starting. There are some plants that really like the heat to germinate, things like peppers and loofahs. And so I use a heat mat just to speed germination. The benefit of speeding up your germination is that there is less time for that seed to rot in the soil. It's really easy to overwater plants when there isn't much of a root system yet. And when a seed is just germinating, there isn't much of a root system there. It's actually a lot easier to keep an ungerminated seed alive and happy in a pot of soil than it is to keep a full seedling alive and happy in a pot of soil. This is the stage where things can go wrong when you put a seed in the soil. Either you water it too much and then the seed rots, or you water it and then it dries out before it's germinated, but it's started to germinate and then it's ruined and it won't germinate after that. And so this is kind of the trickiest stage to have your seed at, which is why I use a seedling heat mat when things are slow to germinate, just so I can get them out of that delicate stage faster and get them growing. And so I plug this in, but I don't leave it on once everything on it has germinated. It's not there to provide a hot tropical environment for these seedlings to grow in. It's just there to aid germination. I don't know if there's supposed to be an up or a down actually on these. I always wonder. It doesn't say. That's so funny. Never use in combination with grow light or direct sunlight. This will overheat and dry out your seedlings' tender roots. Okay, again, seedlings. I'm not using this with seedlings. I'm using it with seeds. I have never had an issue. But theoretically, if you're literally just using this to get things to germinate, then you don't really need the light. While a seedling heat mat is optional, a fan really is not optional. This isn't the most ideal fan for seed starting because it's kind of clunky and it can't reach all the shelves So I'd love a better fan solution, but this is what I have. This is what I'm working with. You really just need a way to get airflow on your seedlings. And that is so that you get strong stems for one, and also you can reduce fungal issues because a fan will dry out the surface layer of your soil, and then you don't get like mold and stuff growing on your soil, which isn't the end of the world in seed starting. Just FYI, but it does keep things cleaner to have good airflow. You don't need your fan running all day, just a couple of hours on a low breeze is plenty. Now, here is where I'm doing things a little bit differently this year. In my last seed starting setup video that I did last year, I talked a lot about pots. Pots like these, and the trays that they sit in. And I do recommend a really sturdy pot system and tray system if you're going to go that route, because they'll last for a very, very, very long time, potentially your lifetime of growing seedlings, as long as you get the really good quality, heavy duty pots and trays. However, they are plastic. So context, I've always wanted to do soil blocking, but the tools were pretty expensive. And for Christmas this year, I got soil blockers. I got these guys and I love them. I excitedly jumped on using them for my early January things, even though I wasn't going to. I had done a bit of research and learned that maybe soil blocks are best for things that aren't going to be indoors for that long, because if I've started things in soil blocks in January and they're going to live in soil blocks until May, then those soil blocks are going to have a long time to erode. Every time I water, they're going to wash away. So I'm not sure how perfect the system's going to be for long-term use in our climate where things sit for so long under grow lights, but I wanted to try it out. And some things obviously are in plastic pots still, like my loofahs. My thought was that I can always pot up those soil blocks into pots if they really start to fall apart. It's also possible to make your own pots out of newspaper, out of toilet paper rolls, out of cream cartons, out of whatever you find in your recycling bin. Just note that with paper-based products, they do have a tendency to mold, at least in my experience, again, when they're inside for such a long time. And then with plastic containers that you might pull out of your recycling bin, you have to make sure there's good drainage. So you'd have to poke a bunch of holes or drill a bunch of holes in the bottom. But you can make do. However, if you are here as an intermediate gardener, somebody who's really invested in setting up a good seed starting system, or maybe adjusting the seed starting system you have, then please come along with me as I journey into soil blocking and try to do away with plastic everywhere I can. So instead of pots and trays exclusively, because look at the mess that it makes. So this is the mess that I've just brought in from my shed. There are just pots everywhere. Oh, and eggs that I forgot I have to put in the fridge. Just stacks and stacks of pots and trays. And this isn't even all of them. There's a bunch in my basement. And so it takes up a lot of space. It is a pain in the butt to have to wash them every year, every season. And of course, if you are using heavy duty pots and trays, the benefit is that you can put them in a dishwasher to sterilize them. You can't do that with the less expensive pots and trays. Now this year, because I'm soil blocking, I am doing something a little different for my trays, because these trays here have little channels in them. These are great. They're from Bootstrap Farmer. It's a 1020 tray from Bootstrap Farmer with the, I think, 2-inch tall sides. They're great for these pots. And they're great for these pots because you can bottom water, pour water right in here, and then the water just fills the channels. And so your pots aren't sitting in the water after they've absorbed enough. However, because of those channels, they are not ideal for the soil blocks. Like, they're this size and they'll just fall into those channels and get washed away. So we upgraded our cookie sheets this year, like our baking sheets, because they were really, really rusty and gross. And we'd had them since like undergrad and university, like really old. And I knew I wanted something like a cookie sheet, but I wanted it to be stainless steel. So I used our old cookie sheets. And we used to have an above ground pool when we bought this place, and we didn't want it, but we had to do some repairs to it up front. And one of the things that we needed to do was buy some galvanizing spray paint to patch up a rusty spot on our pool. And we still had leftovers of that galvanizing spray paint. So we sprayed these cookie sheets that were really rusty with a galvanizing spray paint. So it's like a Tremclad or a Rust-Oleum, where it's supposed to prevent it from further rusting. And so that's what I'm going to try this year for my soil blocks. It's a nice solid surface. Right now I have them in just my little microgreen tray for humidity because I had a humidity dome that fit it. You do need a lot of humidity on soil blocks, as I'm learning, because you want to keep that soil really moist as the seeds germinate, as with anything, but because there's extra airflow around these blocks, they dry out faster. And so where I don't have a humidity dome that fits, like with these cookie sheets, believe me, for over a year, I had been looking for a tray for future soil blocking that was 10-20 sized, 10 inches by 20 inches, because I wanted to use my humidity domes, these guys, but they aren't the right size for these. If they are too long, then water that condensates on top will just drip off the back end of it. And so I did so much research and I found this stuff. This is compostable cling wrap. We haven't used saran wrap or cling wrap in over a decade here. It's one of the first plastics we gave up. We found it really easy to give up. And then I discovered I needed something like this to put over my seedlings to keep them humid. And I found this compostable stuff. Now this is like certified compostable. It's compostable to the point where it says it'll only last a year in your pantry. It starts to break down. But that sounds great for my needs, so I'm trying it this year. So far, it's working great. It's not yet breaking down on top of the moist soil, so it's doing what I need it to do. And that is my plan for the soil blocking this year. So that's it. This is the setup that I use year after year. It works really well for me. It is sized to just meet my needs plus a little extra, so hopefully things don't just become a big jungle inside it. There are grow lights that can be adjusted on chains and hung from the shelves really easily. There's a fan for airflow that I turn on for 1 or 2 hours a day. There is a heat mat for those seeds that need it, but that is totally optional for you. And then I still have pots and trays. I really like the sturdy ones if I'm going to use plastic, so I use Bootstrap Farmer. I haven't had any complaints with those in the last several years since I've been using them. If you're soil blocking, then you just need soil blockers and some form of tray to put them on, and then some way to keep them nice and humid while the seeds are germinating. Oh, and then one last thing that's very specific to my situation. These are my cat screens because the cats definitely will get up here and destroy all of my hard work. Thanks for coming along with me as we got our grow shelves set up for the year. So excited. Now it's time to start thinking about what seeds I am sowing for February. That'll be in the upcoming video. So if you want to come and grow with me this season and see what seeds I start and don't start in February in zone 6A, again, pretty relevant to like zones 4 to 6 in Canada at least, then please subscribe, come along with me as we grow this year, and I'll see you in the next one.